Welcome to Education Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle, and today we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion in Arizona. Joining me to tell us more about this is the Center Square's education reporter, Esther Wickham. Esther, the Arizona State Board of Education made a significant decision about DEI in their teaching standards. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, thanks, Eliana. So this past week, the Arizona State Board of Education had a public meeting, essentially talking about the question of removing diversity, equity, and inclusion within their teaching standards. This question has been raised by the Department of Education within Arizona, as well as the Superintendent of Arizona, Tom Horn, and they kind of questioned whether they should be removing, these DEI policies for fear of losing federal funding since the Trump administration has taken strides to remove and kind of cut DEI policies within education since his executive order. And so they, during this meeting, decided to approve kind of this process of removing DEI within teacher standards in order to comply with the federal executive order. Because, as I said before, the education funding that Arizona gets from the federal government is close to $866 million. And so Superintendent Horn has, during the meeting kind of talked about that fear of, if we don't comply. We've seen in the past couple of months, as we've talked about, Eliana, the federal government has taken strides to, cut that crucial funding or freeze that funding for states that don't comply. And so in that meeting, there was a lot of pushback, a lot of opposition from board members, as well as parents and educators talking during this meeting who kind of raised concerns about removing the standards for fear of taking away culture or the talents or the diversity that we see within the state of Arizona within education. And so aside from those kind of fewer concerns, the board members decided to approve and kind of start this process of evaluating, what the definitions are, what those teacher standards are, the language that's being used to kind of take those steps in cutting some crucial language out.
And what's the timeline on this process?
Yeah, so the goal is that at the beginning of the new year in 2026, they are going to provide kind of a draft material for the board members to consider, even though this probably won't take an effect until September of next year. So it seems like they're going to, take their time with this and try and be really methodical because, as I said before, the executive order 14151, which was issued by the Trump administration, basically requires, DEI to be cut in education. And, this was issued back in January, but they, essentially want to take anything related to DEI, any kind of, language to be removed and approved by the board to make sure, that they are maintaining the standards for the state of Arizona, but also complying with federal law. And so, kind of what that looked like, the start of it was in November of this past year. A letter was sent to the Arizona State Board of Education. Superintendent Tom Horn was leading the charge, along with 8 state lawmakers within Arizona, kind of calling for immediate action. The teaching standards are under the structured English immersion framework. And as I said before, this is the specific framework that they want to change, they want to revise, because they think that, changing and removing some language within this SEI framework is more imperative than losing crucial federal funding that the state could use, for various programs for students and for, teachers to have that crucial funding to help them. But throughout the meeting, there was a ton of pushback, as I said before. One teacher who is also a parent within the school system, kind of said that, removing these DEI standards is a broad overreach. It goes well beyond what the executive order is requiring. And, the teacher kind of talks about how eliminating these standards kind of eliminates culture, kind of eliminates celebrating diversity. And so that was kind of one of the, concerns, as this mom says, Beth Lewis. She kind of says that this is educational malpractice. That's that's the language she kind of used in erasing ways that their students are unique, their talents, their context. And so some of the board members kind of pushed back on that language, kind of said, we are going to take steps to, make sure that this is not something that goes quickly, that goes swiftly. We're going to look at the language. We're going to learn how and what needs to be removed in order to comply. But that's something that some people fear, that they might be, cutting or essentially erasing different cultures and different practices. Another board member, actually, Jason Cantonese, kind of questioning during the meeting the state's priority. Because he says, sure, yes, administrative costs, federal funding is important, but his priority and the education department's priority should be the students, should be student outcomes, should be what students are learning, how they're growing. And something he's highlighted, which we've talked a lot about, is enrollment decline, teacher shortage. He said that since July alone in the state of Arizona, they've lost over 1,000 teachers. And so, the teachers currently within the system are being stretched, and kind of adding this additional change in the language they use within the class, different things they talk about might affect that number and might increase that number even more. And the various decisions that teachers make, they want to make sure that this ultimately helps students learn and thrive, rather than just focusing on the federal funding that we're getting for the government. So there's kind of back and forth. It is somewhat bipartisan. A lot of board members, kind of on both sides, agree that this is an important change and an important push, because as we've said before, the administration has not shown that they take these issues lightly. We can kind of see from past experience that the Trump administration would not be fearful of cutting or freezing federal funding. And so I think that Superintendent Horn, as well as other lawmakers in the state of Arizona, just want to be really careful in ways to comply. And this is kind of one step in that process of removing DEI related standards within education.
Well, Esther, thank you for your insights on this story. You can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.